In this e-learning, we're going to be talking about wise option backups. This is more technical stuff and is designed more to the hardware support personnel as well as the network professional assisting you with your local terminals and server. You're going to need some expertise in the operational system because we're going to be using files management and we're going to use the Microsoft My Computer tool. Wise option backup. We're going to discuss how to back up wise option, reminding you that backups prior to any update is a user responsibility. So every time you have a new update for your system, please make sure that you back up the system before performing any update wizard, before running the update wizard. Another very common question is, when should I back up my files? Of course, it depends on how often you enter records or how many entries you have per day, and how many records you are willing, how many days you are willing to re-enter in case of something happens. Actually, the answer should be answered by you, and it's up to you to know how long the backup. We have users that do this once a month, but we also have users that back up their files every day. Well, when we say backing up files, we are mentioning about copying those files located on your computer to an external media, to an external source. But prior to that happens, we have several options of backups on the same box, files on the same computer that will be happening. And this is the first topic in our e-learning today. We have the auto backup files, we HorseDB backup file, and Go back points. Let's first talk about the auto backups. The auto backups happens for the first login on the day. If you don't use a computer on that day, you will not have an auto backup for that day. But if you use the computer, if you use not the computer, but actually wise option on that day, auto backup tool will, before letting you enter into the program, create a copy, a frozen copy of the database in wise options folder and maintain that. But it will happen for the last 7 days. So the auto backup is actually a loop. It happens in a loop. On the day 8, the auto backup will overwrite backup number 1. So you keep the last 7 days. I'm going to show you now how to set up the auto backup tool. Let me bring on this screen wise option, the program. And when we click on tools, options, you're going to find a tab for the backup. And that's the place where we set up the folder, the location for our backup files. We're going to place this button. Those question marks mean that the backup folder is not set in this wise options instance. And the summary of this message is actually saying that you should perform these on the server. Don't try to run this tool from the terminal because the location will not be proper for the auto backup and nor the other backup options we offer. We're going to say yes because we are on the server and the location will be set. So now under tools and options, we have the location for backup files set in this computer. I'm going to just hit OK. And next I'm going to show you what it did. Actually, it was a very simple thing, and I'll be answering our next topic. I'm going to click here. I'm going to open the My Computer tool. And there's this very nice button here. I like to use it very much so, which splits my screen in two. On this side, I have a summary. And when I go here on the right side, it shows me in details what I have on that side. So when I select the location, this is what I'm trying to show you here. Let me click on the folder. It actually created this file for me, the backup folder .dat. So the extension .dat backup folder actually tells wise option which folder wise option should place the backup files in. If I open this, this is just a text file. You could open with a regular notepad, will be just fine. And as you can see, it simply set the location where the backup files should be. In other words, if I rename this file to something else, Wise Option no longer knows where the backup files should be. Just to prove that, we're going to return to our Tools options. And I'm going to visit my backup. So, in other words, this is how you disable the auto backup and the folder, the location for Wise Option to store backup files. I'm going to cancel this. I'm going to return to my Tools. I'm going to rename this file back to what it was. And return to my Wise Option. Option, Tools, Backup tab. There you go. So the auto backup feature is now back and running. Okay, so we saw that it's happening every time on the very first login of the day. Skips the 7 days. We learned how to set up the auto backup, how to disable, and it is under Tools Options, the Backup tab. Well, we also have the, let me back up a little bit. I'd like to show you one more thing. Actually, I will visit again my computer tool. For this time, I'm going to open here that folder we saw saying that the files would be saved. And if I look there, you're going to see all my auto backup files. Like I mentioned, backups 1 through 7. So on the day 8, file number 1 will become, the file 8. Actually, we don't have file 8. It's a loop. So when we reach the 7th auto backup, next day it overwrites the file number 1. Okay, that's what I'd like to show you where the files are. The next is about the HorseDB backup. Since we have the auto backup every day, we have this file over here, and it's just one file. Every time you use the feature to back up Wise Option, I mean to duplicate the database, not backing up on an out medium, on a different source, on a different drive. When you use Wise Option to back up the database, it will be actually copying the database into a different file and with a different name. So we have 3 options. The first one I showed you, which is the auto backup. The next one is the backup itself. The difference from the auto backup, last 7 days, first login, and this one just happens when you fire this option. When you come here and you say, okay, I want to do a backup, the operation will overwrite the last backup file. So you just keep the last. You don't have a history at least the 7 days. And when I say yes, it will create or actually overwrite the last file. And, the reason for this, when people ask, is some users would like to not only have the first backup in the morning, the first hour, a copy from the first hour, but also, let's say, before they leave, they'd like to have some sort of a copy of the database when they finish the work on the day. This is how you would go. You just click on Tools, Database Tools, Backup, and you can create a backup file. The way it works and how it works is that there's no automation in this process. So, in other words, you must go to that feature and use it. Otherwise, that file will never be updated. Okay, some people say, okay, but I would like to have further than 7 days. I would like to keep a history of my backups. So if something happens, I'd like to have a reference and get back and know if the data or some records were properly entered, or do an auditing or some sort of verification about the records entered. How do I go to, a longer period of time in the past? Go back points is the solution to that. To use the go back point, we're going to return to the Wise Option, and every time you wanted to use the go back point, you just come here and you create a go back point. Is that what you want to do? Yes, sure. Here's the point. When you create a go back point, it's not like the auto backup. The auto backup, it's only 7 files in a loop. The go back point is a static file with a specific name for that particular day, date, and time. So when we create a go back point, it will be there forever unless you delete the file. So here we are suggesting that time to time you should verify the number of go back points you have on your computer. Maybe put that on a CD or DVD and delete those go back points. So you will not kind of, blow your space in the computer because you are using too much memory with those go back points. It will create the file, will tell you if the file has been successfully created, and this is a kind of a name it gives to the file. It says it is a go back point, the name of the user, year, month, date, hour, minute, and second, and also using the extension DAT. If we go to that same folder, we're gonna, let me refresh this memory, and I'm gonna sort this list by the date. And here on top, you're gonna find the last backup. Prior to that, the backup I created, showing you the HorseDB file. All right. Let's return to our slide. When should I do the go back points? One thing is for sure. Please remember to do your go back point before starting the billing day. Because some people call us and say, oh, we printed it, we charged everything, we've verified the procedures, we created invoices, but we forgot to charge the board. Well, if we have a go back point, that would be one of the options to, regain the time and start over. Although we have other options for this specific example, but this is how one of the things, or something more serious happened, we could use that. Anytime you want to use a go back point, I'm going to do some, drastic change in my horse files. I would like to have a go back point just to have a safe and secure copy of the database in case something goes wrong, and I could return that. Wise Option database. Now, moving on. All of those, the auto backup, the HorseDB, and the go back points, are copies of the database. They are not actually the database itself. And here is where you can find the database in Wise Option. When you visit the Wise Option folder, there is a subfolder called Database. And those are the 2 files where your records are, the horse database and the log file. These files are required by SQL Server, and they are also protected by Microsoft SQL Server. So here is something I'm going to try to do. I'm going to try to rename that file to something else. I'm going to press Enter, and look what happens. The file is safe. It's protected by Microsoft SQL Server because this is a database file that is currently in use. Therefore, you cannot do practically anything with that file. You cannot copy the file. You cannot rename the file. You cannot delete the file. And back to the first one, that's right, you cannot even copy the file. If I say copy and I say paste, it won't let me do that. So I'm going to show you how to handle those files, how to copy the database file from your database. Well, if I'm saying that the file is locked, the first thing we need to do is to unlock the file. But to unlock the file, you're going to have to stop the database. To stop the database, we need to make sure, in case of a network, a local network running Wise Option, we need to make sure that nobody's running the program. And you're going to find this icon here on your taskbar. And this icon is the SQL manager for Wise Option database. You simply right-click and you stop the database. It's going to have a question if that's really what you want to do, of course, after making sure that nobody's running the program. And you're going to notice now that instead of a green arrow, we have a red square saying that that database is no longer running. It's stopped, which means that now I can work with this file. I could, for instance, rename the file. Of course, that's not a good procedure because if I try to start the database again, since it has a new name, SQL Server will not find that file. But a good thing that I could do with this is I could, for instance, copy and now paste. So if that allows me to copy and paste, means that the file is free to copy to a different backup device. For instance, I could burn a CD, I could burn a DVD, operation that is not allowed when the database is up and running. Let me delete this, and I'm going to now start the database. So from a red square, we should now have right here a green arrow. That means the database is again up and running. Okay? All right. So I showed you how to start and stop the database, and sometimes people call ours. Don't forget to start the database. It is very frequent people saying, okay, I just backed up my Wise Option database and it's no longer working. It's simply because they forgot to start the database. When they're trying to reach SQL Server, the database is not running. Therefore, there is a failure and an error message shows up on your screen. What you should do when you cannot find the database tool on your taskbar. Let's take a look at that. This is the situation we are talking about. Let me exit this. So I'm here exactly simulating the lack of the SQL Server management tool in our taskbar. How do I put that back? Okay. We're going to need to find My Programs, and this, of course, we need to do this on the server. And we're going to open the SQL Server. There is, by default, this folder called 80, which is the version for SQL Server, under Tools and Bin. This is the roadmap to reopen that icon. And to have that icon, I need to run SQL Manager. There you go. I have now a nice console to work with that, and also the icon is back on the bottom. I could stop it from here, or if you prefer, you could stop it from here. When you minimize, it comes to your taskbar here on the bottom, and when you close, it goes away, but icon remains on your screen. All right, so I showed you how to deal with your database. Stop the database, burn the CD or DVD. After doing that, of course, making sure nobody's using the program, start the database, and you're good to go. Let's talk a little bit about the backup devices and options. Why other devices? When we were talking about auto backups, backup DB, HorseDB backup file, and the go back points, those are copies of the database, and they are placed on the same box where the main database, the real one, the major file, is in your server. Therefore, if something happens to that machine, that box, all your backups are gone too. So a lightning, a flood, or in case you just run the program on a laptop, if somebody takes your laptop away, that happened in the past to one of our customers, you don't have anything. Other than that, we need to duplicate the files in a different media, in a different source. Okay. The options we have out there. We're now going to talk about the data tapes. Very common type of backups. Personally, I don't like that very much because of the fact that, well, on the hard way we learned that. One of our customers had 7 tapes, and she was using those tapes from Monday through Sunday, a tape a day. Well, she was doing that for 3 long years, same 7 tapes. Well, manufacturers recommend that those tapes should be changed every 3 months. 3 years is, a long period. Turns out that no tape had good files. She thought she had good backup, but actually she did not have good backups. The tapes failed. Files were corrupted and we could not help. Re-entering everything from zero. Very cheap nowadays, we have CDs and DVDs. CDs are a good option until a certain point when you have several go back points, and if you want to keep adding history to your backups, maybe a DVD would be a better solution. If you're running out of space, burn a DVD with all your go back points. After having the DVD, delete all the go back points that are no longer necessary because they're already in a different backup device. And you just keep using CDs or DVDs. Also very common today, we have the external hard drives. Very user-friendly. However, if something happens to that hard drive, you don't have how to recover your backup files. If something happens to a particular DVD, and important is to mention here that we do not recommend those rewritables, DVDs that you can rewrite. Try to get those just for one at a time. If you go to the very last and it's somehow corrupted, has a bad track or something, you go to the previous one. If you have a history of CDs and DVDs, you'll be in a much safer spot. We also have seen flash drives. This can be an alternative for you to take the files with you at the end of the day, duplicate the files in a flash drive, and simply take from the farm. Don't leave the files on the farm. And the last one would be to have your files duplicated through the network to a different computer. This is another option, but sometimes if a bad lightning could, burn more than one computer at the same time, and if you are not in a lucky day and you have exactly the computers with your backup screwed, that would be a tremendous problem. So our suggestions would be to have, a combination. You could have the flash drive, the more, the better. And like we said, in computer, only those without backups are really mad at computers because, you have a way to get back. Actually, we are talking about your data, and the computer is just the source that we are using to work with that data. We need to take those records out of your machine and make sure we can keep going with a different machine. The more the better. A combination would be maybe a DVD once a week or before billing day. You're going to tell you how often. You could have your hard drives. Please, no tapes unless you're making sure that you have fresh tapes every 3 months or so. And you could take the flash drive once in a while, with a fresh record. Also, this is pretty easy to set up. Have another computer on the network. Doesn't cost much if you're ready. It's just a matter of setting up to have the files on a different, machine that you can work. So today we talk about backups. I know most people get nervous about that, but backups is in the computer world is just like in church. We usually say, "Only Jesus saves." Have a good day.